Be summer, I can't hear yet.
All right. All right, everybody. I'm going to call the regular Moab City Council meeting to order on July 23rd at 6:02 p.m. I'm going to start with the Pledge of Allegiance, and Lena Pace is going to lead us in the pledge tonight.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Lena. All right, we have a little adjustment to the agenda tonight because item 6.1, Marcy's going to be presenting the strategic plan that you guys will be considering this evening, and she needs to be at school by 7. So if I could have a motion to amend the agenda to move item 6.1 to after public comments. So we'll do public comments and then we'll have Marcy come up.
I'll make that motion.
Okay. Motion by Connie. Second by Luke to amend the agenda. We'll move item 6.1 under item number 2 on the agenda. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 5-0. All right. So before we hear from Marcy, we're going to have public comments. And it looks like we have a couple of comments. We'll start with the Taylors. Dee?
Thank you for allowing me to comment. After the flooding 2 years ago, we met with an NRCS specialist who was writing a plan to fix the flooding. Just wondering whatever happened to that NRCS plan. 2 weeks ago at this meeting, we were watching online. I heard somebody say that plan was out the window. Just kind of wondering what they meant by out the window. Is it who threw it out the window, I guess is what I'm asking, but we never saw the plan. We never heard what was on the plan. We were supposed to have a meeting with the city once a month to talk about the plan. 2 years went by and it never happened. Now it looks like we're waiting on another plan, I take it. Which is kind of deja vu all over again to me, but I'll move on. It's my understanding that the transient room tax money, 63% of that can be spent on mitigation, including flood mitigation. Since most of the motels and restaurants are in Moab, I think you have a pretty good case that you could go to the county and say, we need part of that money, or at least help with flood mitigation in lieu of money, which they should be included anyway. This flooding issue is countywide, not just citywide. I know there are existing rock gabions all up and down the creek. They just were never maintained, never cleaned out. Would it be easier to get a permit to do maintenance on those existing gabions and dig them out than it would be to get a plan and build something new? flood season is upon us. And the creeks are still full of debris. We walked the pathway today up to 100 east. There's two big cottonwood trees that fallen across the creek right there where the pathway is falling off into the creek. If we get another flood and those are still there, they may get under the first east bridge and we'll have another flooding episode on Main Street. You have active permits to work in the creek. I'm just wondering what you're waiting for, another flood? Our house may be the first to go, but it may not, may be the first of many. It's not just a problem in our yards. It's a problem in the whole valley. The condos would have flooded last time if we wouldn't have built at our own deal, built two dikes. The hospital's right below that, so hospital would be next.
Thanks, Dee. Pete,
Can you switch your name?
sure. Sarah,
I'm Pete. That's what he told me to say. So I just wanted to make a salute to the police. I had high adventure at Lions Park on Saturday when I was doing the recycling. I was walking up with the container up to the upper pavilion. A white car rushes in. There's a cop right behind. A woman jumps out of the car. Two more police officers come in behind. The woman runs in the bathroom. Huh? Oh, I thought someone was talking to me. The cops had told her, stop, stop. She didn't listen. She ran in the bathroom. So there's three officers, Hazelton, Bastian, and Finney at the door. The woman doesn't want to stop, so she does her business. And they said, you come out when you're done. So she came out and I was trying to make myself invisible because I didn't want to be interfering at all. So I'm very quietly getting my recycling, moving away, kind of watching out of the corner of my eye. So she finally comes out of the bathroom and they make her sit at the picnic table. And she's going, I don't feel safe with you guys. And it took all my energy not to go up to her and say, honey, these are the three nicest cops you'd ever meet, except for Glenn. So she finally was arrested. They put her in handcuffs. She didn't really resist, and they took her away. But when I was driving the Lions, I saw Finney doing traffic, and I guess he had someone pulled over, and she pulled up and clipped his mirror and kept going. And she was intoxicated. So thanks to the police for getting people off the road that could kill other people. And thank you, Moab, for that little entertainment. I wish I had videoed the whole thing because it was, the officers were so kind and so gentle with her. And she was kind of being a little obnoxious like drunk people will do. But it saved someone's life probably. So thank you to the Moab City Police.
Thanks, Sarah. Thanks, Sarah.
That's my little.
All right. Thanks for sharing. Pete,
Thank you once again for tolerating my rants. Actually, I want to echo what Sarah said too. Ever since, Jared Garcia and then Lex Bell came on the police force, I just see a much improvement in morale, and also just interactions with them are always extremely positive. I mean, I tremendous respect for all of them. And I hope that Lex Bell, if he's listening, I hope his rehab goes well. I first met Lex when I spoke to this body, different composition, at Citizens to Be, at the time it was Citizens to Be Heard. I jokingly thought, I'd like to be here for Citizens to Be Unheard and have the quiet. But anyway, I came to speak up about the Blue Ribbon Coalition lawsuit against the city and the county, and thought, we have all these noisy vehicles. They're not off-road vehicles. They're wannabe sports cars and modified muffler diesel vehicles that are extremely loud. And this is the 3rd year anniversary of the passage by both the city and the county of updated noise ordinances, specifically worded to make it more straightforward and easier to cite overly loud vehicles. And sort of a rhetorical question, has any motor vehicle been cited for being excessively loud under the noise ordinance? I know you can't answer that right now, but after I spoke, I had a conversation with Lex Bell outside, and he said, do you know, and I've told you this before, do you know where we can find some of these guys? Anyway, I would be happy to be eyes and ears on the ground. I've, collected some license plate numbers. I forwarded some to Lex. But one of my questions, which I posed a year and a half ago, was if we could bring Les Blomberg back. He's the Noise Pollution Clearinghouse co-founder, executive director, who did the consulting, basically helped rewrite those ordinances for specifically that purpose. I strongly suspect he would be more than willing to come back out. He did conduct training for the sheriff's department, but at the time the police force was depleted, so there weren't enough officers to even bother with doing noise training. They were overwhelmed. But I'm hoping that perhaps that would be an option now. I think he would be into it, and I think it would help improve the quality and quantity of life in Moab. I think there's ample evidence that noise pollution also degrades, is negative towards wildlife. And, it is with humans too. The stress is significant. One anecdotal thing, a friend of mine who, relative newborn, feels like her child was her beginning to speak was probably retarded by just the noise and it's well known that inhibits learning and child development. Anyway, thank you for your time. I rambled longer than I intended to, and it's always a pleasure to come before you guys. And I just did.
Thanks, Pete.
Thanks, Pete. Thanks, Pete. Anybody else? If you're interested in speaking, we need you to fill out a form. All right, I will move on to our amended agenda. Agenda item 6.6, consideration of approval of resolution 19/2024, adopting the City of Moab fiscal year 24-25 strategic plan. And if you guys all recall, back in January, we met out at Red Cliffs and had a 2-day session on what we felt were the needs that we wanted staff to be focusing on. And so tonight you'll be considering that. And Marcy is just going to give you an update on where we are and how you guys can actually access the information that shows how far along we are with our planning and objectives.
Perfect. Thank you, Mayor. And thank you, Council. I know I always put a wrinkle in it when I have to present because I am still in school. So I appreciate the flexibility so that I'm able to conquer both. Okay, so all you have to do, I'm going to just kind of do this so that it's very clear on how you get to the location, and then we'll dive into the actual strategic plan. I'm going to really just give one example. The strategic plan was put in the council packet. I did a PDF so that if you did want to review it that way, you can. I highly encourage you to use the site though, just because the PDF is 207 pages long. Okay, so you just go to the first moabcity.org. It's right on the cover page. And if you scroll down, there's this fun little button, 2024-2025 City Strategic Plan. Takes you exactly to the strategic plan page, which is super beneficial and quick access. So you're not trying to search the website. And Lisa actually put that into place last year. Some of you were here, some of you were not. And then we have different ways that we can access it. So you can access it from this link here. Then we also have an infrastructure link here, but then these pictures are actually interactive. So the strategic plan, you just click on the photo. It was because I took down the 23-24 and I did not tell David, and I hadn't
I'm
had,
just kidding.
I know. So yeah, that was totally my fault. He was like, when did you do that? And I was like, he's like, was that today? Was that like, when was that?
Thought I was
Like,
crazy.
it was actually this
Okay.
morning. Why? Anyway, so when you click on it, it says awesome, interactive. This is actually ClearGov. It was something that was put into place a couple of years ago. We used it for the first time for strategic plan last year. And I replicated 2023-2024's plan because a lot of the stuff carries over. Some stuff was complete, some stuff was rearranged. And so this is what you guys and staff sat down in January and put together. Okay. So this is our cover page here. It's just pretty basic. The introduction is the same as what it was because there hasn't been a change as to why we have the strategic plan and what our reasoning is. But if there is, citizens that want to understand this a little bit better, this information right here gives you a pretty good understanding. And I would highly encourage people to go to this, read this, and get a better understanding of what our strategic plan is and what its purpose is and how we got to what we are now using today. This sheet is kind of fun. Don't get discouraged by the 19% complete because as you guys remember, this is an ongoing plan. It's always growing, it's always changing, and you're always going to see this number increase or even sometimes decrease if we have like major completions and then we swap priorities and we have other priorities that have come in that are brand new. Right here, you'll see on the screen, complete, on track, minor disruption, etc. You'll see a few major disruptions. Those were projects that have just been placed on hold. It's not that the word major disruption is not our choice. It's what the ClearGov offers. So just so that anybody listening or any of you guys, if you have any concerns, just understand that's just the verbiage. It's just saying that we just have a disruption, a delay of some sort. Okay. And then down here is our little chart that kind of tells us like what our progress is. And then we'll jump on to our, what we call our pillars. So this was the Together Tomorrow breakout that was put together to create our strategic plan. Each of these here have breakdowns, specific tracking items to each of these categories. So I'm not going to go into every single one of these tonight. Really, we just want to kind of show you guys what one example. And so tonight I chose to use dark skies compliance. The reason that I'm picking the dark skies compliance is it is almost finished, but there's still a few little things left to do. So I feel like that was a really good example for us to use. So when you click on each of the pillars, it'll break down each of our goals. So as you can see here, we have several goals. It's shows you how many objectives we have associated to that goal. What that means is like how many steps there might be or how many different trackings, you know, that we have for individual goals set under each pillar. Okay. And where's my dark? There it is. Okay. So you click on it. Again, this is a very interactive plan, so it makes it pretty user-friendly. So right here, you're going to see we have several things complete: development and adoption of the updated ordinance. If you want to see updates, you can actually click into each of these and it'll tell you like what our status updates are. So on 11/8, when we had done the plan from the previous fiscal year, you're going to see some of those notes transfer because they are relevant and important. You'll see that this date here accumulates to 90%. Going forward, this section right here will say notes. It'll actually have a detail of what the update or progress is if there is relevant information that is helpful to council and the community. In this case, it was us just putting it together the plan. So a lot of the notes may not be as detailed, but the information for each objective, I think some are pretty clear. Okay. And then we just have to click. Oh gosh, just kidding. Don't do that. Go back. Okay. So then, each of these, again, it shows you like last updated, what progress information we have. I'm not sure if this one has notes. I'll find one that has notes just to give you an example. But this is showing you like in 11/8, we had 50% progress. And then when we went in, all the departments and their designees went in and did updates in the strategic plan to determine like status updates so that we have more recent information for the community. So on 5/21, they're like, oh, this part is done, which is super great. And then, so then there's this one, plans to bring the commercial properties into compliance. As you can see, there's not anything here because that still is an ongoing plan. It's something that they are working on. We have the ordinance now, everything's put in place, it's been approved by council, and now they're working on a long-term and short-term plans on how to help commercial and residentials come into compliance with the new ordinance. And as you'll see, you'll get updates and progress updates on here on the statuses on where they're at. We're actually, it's not in here yet because we do have staff doing quarterly updates right now because it is a pretty big undertaking. We have a couple of departments that, you know, 50% of the plan is theirs for their department and they're updating. So it's quite a large undertaking. So right now we have it set up for quarterly updates where they go in and they do quarter updates. If there's something that the public might be, you know, asking or questioning or anything, you can let David know and we'd be happy to put updates or additional updates if there are any to help with, you know, directing people to utilize our strategic plan. Okay. So let me see. I think that is the gist of it. I was hoping I had one that had a note, but I don't think, oh yeah, right here. So that's what it'll look like if there are notes on here. So the CIB for the planning funding, we have been awarded a $50,000 plan or planning grant, which that is how you'll know, like, why, how is this complete? Like, what was the concept? And so every department that is going to be doing these updates have been asked to put notes, even if they're just very simple notes, just to help clarify for people that may not be working in these projects or may not have the full understanding, to help with clarification if there are any. Do you guys have any questions?
Pretty slick.
Yeah, it's fun. I had fun building it. So
Yeah, I personally love this. I think it's super helpful for us as we're tracking and for the community to be able to see what we're doing. I just wanted to go back to the 19%. The other part of that too is that our trajectory is 2030, right? And so it's gonna continue as we're adding new items. But the goalpost is also 2030. So that's, another reason why I interpreted that to be low, right? When you
Perfect.
look at it, it's low, right? Yeah. Anything else for Marcy?
No, I was just gonna say, I think it's really important to say that the strategic plan, like you said, has things coming in and out of it, and stuff like this. We're not pigeonholed to only what's in this document, like if things come up, we can
Amend.
amend.
Yep.
Yeah. And which I think we probably will be doing.
Yep.
In the future. Near future.
We do strategic planning every year.
Right, but even in between, like,
Yeah.
we did this in January, so it's for 24, 25. So if we wanted to add something that we've overlooked or something came up, for example, the flood, we probably want to relook and re-amend
Yeah.
Yeah.
our strategic plan to include that, and I think that's something that we should really seriously consider.
How will that process work? I mean, because absolutely the flood has introduced a number of new.
We'll probably hear from Michael and he'll give us some updates, and then we can, have a conversation about it when we meet and to get it on the agenda to do an amendment.
Great.
Okay. All right, so thank you, Marcy. We have a motion to consider the approval of resolution 19/2024, adopting a City of Moab fiscal year strategic plan for 24-25.
I'm looking for the special verbiage.
did I mess that up?
No. Is there- I'll make a motion to approve resolution 19-2024 strategic plan for fiscal year 25,
24-25.
24-25.
All right, motion by Jason. Do I have a second?
I can second that.
Second by Colin. Any discussion, Jason?
No.
Colin?
Thanks, Marcy.
Anybody else?
No, thanks.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes 5.
Fabulous. Thank you guys again for being flexible. I'm getting out of here.
Thanks, Marcy.
Good luck in school tonight.
Yep.
I hope you pass. Okay, so the gist of our agenda tonight is really our presentations. We'll start with Lena Pace, who is the new superintendent for the Southeast Utah Group, National Park Service. And Lena, we're happy to have you here. So have a seat.
The hot seat.
Let us know what you got planned for the group.
Well, hello. I think I've met most of you before, but a couple faces look new. My name is Lena Pace. I'm the new superintendent for the Southeast Utah Group, which includes Canyonlands, Arches, and Hoban-Weep and Natural Bridges. I've been here officially since April, but I was here on detail in January. So I had the opportunity to visit Moab in winter and I loved it. As a young person growing up, was in a small town in Southeast Alaska, which is right outside of Glacier Bay National Park and Preserve. And so grew up in a gateway community, which is much smaller than Moab, but has a lot of similar sentiments in terms of the level of care and ownership and passion people have for the public lands around here. And so really grateful to be here, grateful to be able to serve these parks in this community and also to be part of this community. A couple of things we have going on. I don't have an actual formal presentation, but I want to just touch base on a couple of things that we're working on. First and foremost, and probably one of the questions that might come up if I didn't say it up front is we are working on a plan to formalize our visitor use management plan up at Arches. We are looking at entering the NEPA process, which gives us about a year from now to put forward a proposed alternative and go through the public engagement process to finalize and formalize how we're managing visitor use up there at Arches to make sure that we continue to both protect the resources and make sure that visitors who come to Arches have a positive experience when they're there. That's really important to us. So stay tuned. We hope probably in August or September to have a draft environmental assessment out, which will give everyone an opportunity to see what we've been working on and read a little bit more in depth some of the research and studies that we've been doing in the meantime to understand visitor patterns and visitor use up there at Arches. This week, we're actually engaging in the comprehensive river management plan process as well. So moving over to Canyonlands, we're working with Glen Canyon in cooperation to look at how we plan for the river corridor and use along the river corridor, both on the Green and the Colorado and some of the key tributaries of both of those rivers. So excited to engage with the public on that plan as well. Like I said, both Glen Canyon and Canyonlands are working cooperatively on that. So we've got a room up at headquarters all week this week where we're starting to dig into that information, and we'll have some information out for public comment later this year as well. The other couple of things that we're working on, where we have collaborated with the city of Moab on a couple of neat things recently. I heard talk about dark skies. We just got gold certification for our gold certification for our Leave No Trace program. And then we also were supportive of and very happy to see that Moab was able to get the dark sky certification as well. So like I said, we hope to, as the National Park Service, not just be folks up the road or down the road, depending on which parks you're looking towards, but good neighbors and part of these communities to make sure that we're being collaborative and engaging where possible, and really being all on the same side, hopefully, in terms of how we manage these parks and these public lands that I know are so important to everybody. Beyond that, I think what I'll stop with, or the last thing I'll say is, I really appreciate the opportunity to be able to come before a group like this, to be able to speak to the citizens of Moab and Grand County, and to make sure that my door is open, literally or figuratively. I'd much rather address an issue or a question or respond to a concern than hear about it after the fact. So I want to make myself available. I should have brought a stack of business cards, but I forgot today. But I want to make myself available for any questions, concerns, comments. I'd love to come before you again at some point in the future if there are particular issues that need to be discussed. Today, I'm just kind of opening my figurative door and saying I want to be a good partner and a good neighbor and a good community member. And I appreciate the opportunity to be a part of this community, but also be connected to the city council. So I will leave it there and see if anybody has any particular questions about anything we have going on, or me or my background or my team.
Questions for Lena?
Thanks. I was at a luncheon with her last week, so.
We did have lunch just the other day.
I asked the question there.
I just met with David the other day to talk about water and wastewater up at Arches. And so I am starting to get to know all of you, which is great.
Good. Well, welcome.
Thank
Glad
you.
you're here. Looking forward to having lunch in a month.
Absolutely. It's
And
on my
thanks for
calendar.
coming tonight.
Oh, thanks for having me.
You bet.
Great.
All right.
No questions.
Thanks, Lena.
They'll come. Don't worry. They'll have.
I know they will.
All righty. Next on our agenda, we have UDOT here, Jared and his team. I'm not sure who you have with you. But Michael's going to start. He's going to introduce what we're going to be hearing about tonight, and then we'll have UDOT come up and present what the results are from the road safety audit that we participated in a month or so ago. So Michael.
Okay, thank you. So as you said, the UDOT conducted a pedestrian-focused road safety assessment actually in May. It seems like it was just a few weeks ago, but
Doug, would you mind going in the hall and having this conversation? Thank you. Go ahead, Michael. Sorry.
that's okay. So the road safety assessment, or the RSA, was about 2 miles on Main Street, went from Emma Boulevard to 4th East. So Emma Boulevard down to the South Maverick. As I said, it was May 7th. There was a diverse team of people who participated and walked. A lot of you were there, I know. And we had staff who was at every session where they walked, and they'll talk about that tonight. UDOT will and tell you how many times we were out there. I wanted to just talk really quick about the plan or the assessment and what it is and what it's not. First of all, it's not a plan. It lays out a lot of good information. In fact, it's very, very comprehensive. If you look through it, it has just a ton of information in it, and it will advise work that we do in the future. In fact, it will contribute to plans that we do in the future, but it itself is not a plan. The assessments that are made in it are prioritized, and they'll go over that tonight with you. We're not asking the council tonight to approve the RSA. We're just getting a presentation from UDOT on it. And we want to thank UDOT for supporting this. They did pay for it. There was a third-party engineering firm that came out and performed the work and put together the assessment and worked with us on prioritizations and things like that. So we really appreciate them taking the time to do that and putting the resources towards this assessment to get started on looking at our main streets. So I'm turning it over to Jared Beard. He's the UDOT Region 4 Deputy Director, and he's with Cody Marchant, who's the UDOT Region 4 Traffic Operations Engineer. So turn it over to him.
Thanks, Michael.
Hi, I'm Jared Beard. I'm the Deputy Director for UDOT Region 4, which covers the entire southern half of Utah. So everywhere from on I-15, Juab County south, and over here it's Grand San Juan. It's a huge area. So we cover a lot of area. We try to get around as much as we can to visit the communities. Moab is near and dear to my heart. I grew up in Emory County, so not too far away, but wonderful place. So yeah, like Michael said, it was a great opportunity to come down and do this road safety assessment with the town and the city, and to really see what some of the issues are, and kind of, it was really a good brainstorm session on things we can do to going forward in conjunction with the town, working together to start making things better, right? So I'm actually going to turn it over to Cody Marchant. He's our traffic operations engineer for Region 4. So all things signals, safety, permits, that's Cody's world. So I'm going to turn it over to Cody to give us a short presentation just on kind of the gist of what a road safety assessment is. And then kind of where do we go from here? And a couple other updates as well on some other things we've been working on. So
Thanks,
turn it over to Cody. Yep.
Thanks for letting us come and speak with you guys today. Like Jared said, my name's Cody Marchant. I know he's had some great working relationships with a lot of you, and I'm looking forward, as I've stepped into this role as traffic operations engineer, to interact with you guys and work with you as well. Just kind of as a reminder, we like to share UDOT's roadmap and how that entails our mission, vision, our values, and our strategic goals. And particularly highlighting our mission, when we do things like a road safety assessment or work with cities and counties or develop projects and concepts, we really like to keep this in mind, that we're working to enhance the quality of life through transportation and have those emphasis of better mobility, good health, connecting communities, and developing a strong economy. And I feel that, you know, working with you through this road safety assessment hits on each of those elements of the quality of life framework that we're trying to achieve in some point. And we try to have those discussions when we do those things, is which one of these elements are we hitting? So we did the road safety assessment, and I feel Michael really, you know, kind of highlighted the value that this gives. And we had, one thing that makes these so great is having support from the cities and towns that we do it with. And you guys had a great showing, and we appreciate the backing that and support that came with that. So thank you for participating with us in that. It makes a big difference. So Michael kind of highlighted all this, but one of the things we want to really kind of go through is that it does give us an opportunity to partner and get ourselves on the same page, hear what your vision is, and also things that we're able to contribute with. So we reviewed a specific corridor. This was downtown Main Street in Moab. and that was the focus for this one. We've heard a lot of the need for a focus on pedestrians. And so when we worked with the third-party consultant, we made sure that they were aware that that was a big concern for Moab with all the tourism and the people that come here to visit your city. They need to be safe as they're walking throughout the street. And that was one of the things that we really brought a focus to them on. And I know we had a lot of discussions on that out on the road. And so it focuses on 4 corridor walks. Many of you made most of them. And we have a good group of people who split all 4 sessions, but it breaks the whole corridor in different segments. And we worked with the city prior to the actual 4 walks and said, what times are going to be best for us to go out and see these locations and make sure that we're getting the best picture of what you're seeing and what your concerns are. So we had a morning just before lunch, an evening around dinner time, and then a nighttime assessment when we were walking through town. So as we go through and have those discussions and we get the report back, like Michael said, the report is very comprehensive, details a lot of different things, but there's 3 different priority levels. And you kind of identify those as in that assessment, what can be done. And you get priority 1, which is near term, things that are, a lot of people would call them low hanging fruit. What can we address today? Doesn't cost a lot, doesn't take a lot of time and planning and engineering to kind of go through, but things we can tackle, whether those are the responsibility of which party, that's something we work to identify with and who can do that. And then priority 2 is kind of that midterm. We know it's going to take some funding and maybe some design effort and consideration and maybe even public comment on things. And then we have priority 3. They are a long-term, definitely more of a higher cost, and that there is engineering required. So things take time. Funding is always a concern anytime projects are created. How do we get funding and move forward in those? So here's kind of an example of some of those priority ones. As we walked through this audit, one thing that was noted by a lot of people is, what can we do to clear our sidewalks? So can we just make more space? I mean, we know we're not impeding into the buildings, but what can we do to make it more walkable in a lot of the areas? As we stopped along the routes, we noticed and talked about a number of different places where sidewalk was damaged or skipped, and we are able to maybe make some of those repairs. And then a speed study, that's and I'll talk a little bit more about the speed study. We were able to get that submitted and got some information back, and so at the end of this I'll talk a little bit about the speed study that took place there. And then a priority 2, there's signal timing and optimization. We look at the signals with everybody out there and we talk about how can these work. Timing's kind of a big thing. I just recently learned that the signals in Moab actually have received an award because of the technology that's gone into place with them, called the peer-to-peer technology. So I think that's kind of an exciting thing. And it was, nationally recognized in some of the technology that's used. Talked about high visibility crosswalks, what can be done at our crosswalks. When we talk about high visibility, a lot of that just indicates contrast and attention to where pedestrians are crossing. And then less impactful tree species, that what kind of landscaping is done in the area that can both beautify but also create a safer atmosphere for people as well. And then an example of like a priority 3 are bulb outs. We talk about, in addition to pedestrian safety of crosswalks, bulb outs create an additional safety by making pedestrians more visible themselves and getting them to have shorter crossing distances. So that's an example of something that takes a lot more funding and engineering to make sure everything will function properly and not create other challenges down the road. VMS signs, those are variable message signs that we often have at different locations along our corridor. So maybe on outside ends of the road or anywhere that you can kind of provide notice that a sign changes the text and it's not a stagnant sign. And then medians, raised medians through main streets, you know, they make a big difference when you eliminate conflict points. So things that we can always look at and evaluate and make that determination later. So with the RSA, we know that Moab has a vision for downtown and what they want to do. And so having the road safety assessment as a resource to be able to go through and say, how does this align with the vision and what we want to achieve is one of those ways that we encourage that collaboration of what do we want to see out of this road safety audit and what are we able to partner on, and what maybe do we need to find available funding resources, whether we learn of grants that we can go after either as a city or as a department, and then what about partnering in other efforts. Sometimes funds are hard to come by, but if we know we can pull things together and work together, it sure makes things a lot more accessible to implement projects. And then I mentioned the speed study. So after the road safety audit was completed, we got this submitted. And so this starts just downtown, right? Well, I've got the milepost 125, and then I try to think of the location in town, but closer to the market area. And what is displayed here in the colors along the roadway system are the posted speed limits. And then in the yellow text is actually the 85th percentile. To highlight just a couple areas where speed differential in this 85th percentile is higher than the posted speed limit, to what's a much more significant amount is as you go through here where you transition from a 30-mile-an-hour zone to a 45-mile-an-hour zone. And along the 35-mile-an-hour zone, we see that there's people are speeding up as they notice the new speed limit is coming up. As part of this, the studies this year are also including a 50th percentile. I don't have that number on the map just to kind of avoid some of the clutter, but to give you an idea, the 50th percentile, the speed differential, in most instances, people are driving less than the posted speed limit. The only area where that 50th percentile is exceeding is in that same zone where people are going from 30 to 35 and they're increasing in there. And that's by an average of 7 miles an hour over that speed limit. So that's just to help you understand what we're seeing from that speed limit. One thing, as we talk to the engineers who did this study, we asked them a lot about how they collect their data, particularly as they're going through downtown where there's a lot of signals. They say they look for the opportune moment to grab that speed as a free flow speed is going through. So if there's a lot of congestion, they're not really tracking that as that average speed that they're looking for. They're looking for that free flow opportunity and capturing those first cars that are coming through at those speeds. So, and then one other thing that we've felt has been a great partnership with Moab City, Grand County, and developers is here on US 191, Aggie Boulevard and Mill Creek. We've been able to work together to get a signal in the early stages of design now because of that partnership. Alone with UDOT, this intersection did not meet warrants that we wouldn't have been able to fund it alone and make this a possibility. With all the needs throughout the state, it wouldn't have been able to be justified on our own, but because of good partnership from the city and the county and developers, it's a possibility, and we want to let you know how much we appreciate that, because we recognize that often there's a need for something that when it's stacked up against other things, it doesn't always make the cut. But in this case, because of your participation, things were able to take place, and we anticipate that to be constructed in early 2025. And then, you know, we like to always leave a message that as drivers, in order to create safety on our roads, we have a responsibility, and we want to encourage everybody to drive safe. And if we focus on the things that we can do, not the things to avoid, it makes a big difference. So we ask everyone to drive alert and drive focus, drive calm, drive sober, and drive buckled. So thank you. And any questions?
Questions? For Jared and Cody. Where do we go from here?
Oh, yeah, great.
Oh, do you want to go?
Yeah, I was just curious, where do bicycles fit into the conversation around roads and safety, and particularly given Moab's identity as a town known for bicycles and people riding their bicycles around both for recreation and for transportation? I'm curious if that was part of the discussion.
Yeah, so I'd have to, yes, they were. I mean, active transportation is always a big concern. Our trail network is a big thing statewide, connecting trails, and with the road safety audit, part of that discussion that we had out there was, well, how do we facilitate, you know, all these users? And yeah, if you can remember the details from some of that discussion, Jared.
Yeah, I just want to just fill in there a little bit. You know, part of what we really want to understand from Moab moving forward is what is the city's vision for your downtown area? I know the city has in the works a study plan to kind of really define that vision for downtown and for 191. One of the challenges we have is space. I mean, that road's only so wide. We can only do so much with the right of way that we have. Parking impedes on a lot of that area that we might be able to put bikes. So, but that's also an important feature to a lot of businesses. So we really want to work with Moab closely going forward is what is the city's vision, including bikes, to help manage that? Are there alternate routes around downtown that we can kind of funnel bikes to and add bicycle facilities? Do we want to look at parking and bike lanes and things on Main Street? Those are discussions we want to continue to have. Again, this one doesn't provide all the answers. It helps maybe feed into that discussion of what is the city's vision and how do these projects fit into the vision and which one should we move forward first? Like I say, there's short-term, mid-term, that might be a longer-term fix, but yeah, where are we going? So we would love to be a part of that vision discussion going forward.
And one of the things that did come out of that, the safety audit, one of the many wonderful things was I thought we were gonna maybe start a process of a study of a level of service for pedestrians downtown. And is that still in the works? And it's in the report. And I was surprised to see that the speed study had already come out.
Yeah, the speed study is a really easy one for us to do.
Yeah.
We have consultants just kind of on standby who know how to do those, and we can get those, we can pull the trigger pretty quick on those. So that one we pulled the trigger on, got that information. Something I didn't mention with the speed study, and then we'll talk pedestrians. You know, we do have some ideas of some adjustments that can maybe be made with speeds through Moab. We like to do that again in conjunction with the city. What would the city like to see? So we'll continue to have those discussions with council and staff and law enforcement. We don't like to move forward with any speed changes without input from our law enforcement agencies. And in Moab, we've got the city, the county, and our UHP troopers. So we want their input as well before we move forward with changes. But we do have some recommendations, so we'll be reaching out to talk speed with the city and with our law enforcement agencies and talk changes there. Pedestrian wise, I'm not exactly sure. That was a recommendation in there as a level of service for pedestrians. I'm not exactly sure how that study would look. So we'll have to, if that's one that the city is as a high priority, yeah, let's talk about how we get that done. We have some great consultants out there who do these types of things. Maybe that's a part of the visioning process. Maybe that's the next step. But yeah, I'm not sure where we're at on that one is a short answer, but yeah, if that's the high priority, let's figure it out. So.
Thanks, Jared.
Anything else? David? Question
No,
wise?
that's good.
So where do we go from here?
So from here, my recommendations is that the city take a look at this road safety assessment. I'm not sure whether that would be in a work meeting with staff and council. Kind of go through that list. What are your highest priorities? What's most important? What's the low hanging fruit? We kind of mentioned those priority 1 projects. A lot of those were kind of on the city side. Can we move obstructions from the sidewalk? Can we do some adjustments there? Can we fix some cracks and other things? Those are kind of the low hanging fruit. But what can UDOT do? Can we look at a potential high visibility crossing where we do some additional paint striping? Is that something the city really finds important? We put a lot of effort into, when we came through Moab Main Street a while back, into putting the nice little red brick pattern on those crosswalks. So I'm a little hesitant to just come in and paint over them. But those are discussions. Yeah. What's the highest priority to the city? That's what we want to understand going forward. So whether that's in a work meeting where the city gets together yourselves and discuss these things, and then bring us back in and say, hey, these are our top priorities. Let's talk funding. Let's talk timeframes. Let's talk where do we go? So that would be my recommendation, is for the city to kind of take these ideas and let us know which ones are your top priorities, and let's focus on those. Because there's a lot in there.
Right.
So yeah, what's your top priorities, and then we'll figure it out.
Michael, you wanted to add something? You
Yeah.
want to come up?
So as far as next steps go, we'll work with David and the mayor to schedule a work session, and we will invite UDOT to that work session. And before we do that, we'll have an opportunity as staff and maybe some key stakeholders to sit down and talk about all of the recommendations or assessments and the priorities within the RSA. The idea would be at that meeting that we'd be able to talk about how to take the assessment from what it is now with a bunch of priorities and a lot of really great ideas to implementation, if it's possible, and what that might look like. This could potentially be independent of a visioning process. It could be a 5-year capital plan where we could be looking at things that don't necessarily affect the vision of downtown. The road stays the same, the width stays the same. Maybe we don't launch into zoning right away and uses and all of those types of things, and focus more on the accessibility, the sidewalks, the intersections, pedestrian crosswalks, all of those types of things, and really get down into some important projects that we know will enhance what the vision is right now for downtown, which is a walkable space, a place that's conducive to people walking and biking if possible, and obviously a lot of vehicles, but people coming down for commerce as well, and being able to walk from store to store, park close by, and be able to take part in the downtown commerce. So all of those things are what we plan to talk to you about, and to come up with maybe a timeline of how we would implement or move forward with a plan, and then how we would propose that to you as a plan and seek funding for those things. As Jared mentioned and Cody mentioned, some of these things are going to be really easy to do, and we'll be able to accomplish them in the really short term with budgets that already exist. Some of them are going to take some time and potentially will require some larger investments. But I do think there's a lot that we can do over the next 5 years to make the downtown closer to that vision that everybody has. And I hope the vision that I've stated is close to the vision that everybody has. The other thing is there's a demonstration project process where we can potentially propose a demonstration project and work with UDOT to implement something downtown where we do, like we did on First East with the dispersed parking. There was a demonstration project of how the center parking might work. Potentially looking at what could we implement downtown that would actually work and be safe as a demonstration to kind of test theories and test how how we think some of these things might work. I can't tell you today what that is. Those are things that we need to work on together and with UDOT. And again, there's a lot of safety involved with all the vehicles down there. So, you know, it's not as easy sometimes as just painting lines and saying, here, this is where pedestrians go and this is where cars go. Just everybody obey those lines. So we'll be looking at all of that stuff as well.
We looking in the fall to start, have a workshop in the fall.
I think, well, we're getting so close. Yeah, in the next couple of months. So we're almost to August. So yeah, it's going to be September timeframe,
Okay,
early October, late September, early October is when we'll be able to look at that.
great. Any questions, comments?
No, I just want to say thank you. There was a lot of really good information in there. It was easy to understand. It was easy to follow. And I appreciate that.
It would be great if we could get some of the number one priorities accomplished sooner than later. I think that would be really awesome. Of course, it depends on capacity from the city's
Yeah.
perspective, but
So one other thing, this RSA is available on our website. If you go to the planning department and take a look there, it's useful links down in bottom right-hand corner of the planning department webpage.
great. Thank you. Thanks, you guys.
Yeah.
Excited
so
about
much.
the Aggie
Yeah.
Boulevard lights. That's awesome.
Thank you, and
Yeah.
feel free to reach out anytime with questions. Cody, myself, we're happy to take a call anytime and visit more, so.
Great. Thanks, Jared. Thanks, Cody.
Good, and Cody, thank you.
All right. Next up, we have David. He's going to give you guys an administrative service update primarily about our response to the audit and then some brief year-end updates on the budget, which will have more in about a month. But wanted to just kind of get you up to speed to where we are with that. So David, you're up.
Okay. Load up here. So, as you may recall, we received our annual audit from our auditors relatively recently, and a part of that, there were a few, overall, a positive report, not super major findings, but there were a few items that we committed to circling back to you on as a staff, and I wanted to have an initial conversation about those right now, just because the fiscal year did end, and while we're still in the process of doing closeout stuff for the end of the fiscal year, and it'll probably take another month or so. I wanted to just go ahead and address where we were at in terms of our response to the audit's findings. And so there really were two specific findings, and they're in a couple of different documents. This one is the correspondence. This was at the end of the year of, this was actually produced in March of 2024. The major item in that report was that the city had exceeded its fund balance. The statutory limit's 35% of your revenues for the year. And because we hadn't done some transfers in a timely manner, we were exceeding that. However, in response to that, for this year, I've already started to go through that process of making transfers and ensure that we stay well with under that 35% limit. So I wanted to just make sure you all knew we were definitely doing that. And so we took care of that for last year with some transfer work, but now we are getting ahead of it this year and doing it ahead of the whole auditing process with the auditors. So that's really just a matter of going into our financial software and making sure that, here's an example, in the budget, you all approved that the general fund would contribute a certain amount to the recreation fund, right? And so making sure that transfer happens in a timely manner is part of this process, and that helps us stay within our limits. So it's more of a tactical issue than anything, I guess you could say. The other one that was brought up by the auditor was the schedule of this one deficiency, as it were. It was regarding accruals, and accruals speak to when revenues and expenses happen, they need to be accrued to when they actually happened, not when the revenue or expense came into the city. So for instance, if the city has a contractor that we're paying for work done and the work is done in June, but we actually pay them in July. We need to actually accrue it back to June for that fiscal year so that it is accounted for in that fiscal year versus when the check actually was cut. So it's an accrual based way of accounting, and we just need to be consistent with how we're doing it. So the way that we do that is, in this month and in next month as a final accounts payable and accounts receivable trickle in and get finalized, we'll begin to basically reconcile those back to the fiscal year, those that need to be done that way. And so that's just a little bit of a waiting game while we get that done. We've already been in contact with with Polaris, our financial accounting software firm, and they're going to work closely with us and with our auditors to make sure that we're in line with what we did last year and that we're getting ahead of it this year. So I've already had conversations with both of those individuals that lead those firms, and we have also actually already scheduled our audit for this September with the auditors. So a little bit more ahead of the ball this year as opposed to maybe last year. So I'm happy to say I feel really confident about where we're at with all of that. I'm sure there'll be some small things that we run into, but overall, I feel like we're certainly addressing the two issues that came up last year.
Auditors always find something, always.
And they're doing their job.
Right.
Yeah. Really quickly turning to the end of the year, part of this process isn't finalized in terms of saying, well, we came in with this much in the way of revenue and this much in the way of expense. Another example of the accrual issue is that taxes that were actually paid in June, we don't see until August, right? So we have to wait until August to figure out what our June revenues were, and that will then help us understand exactly what our fiscal year revenues looked like. That said, I can at a fairly high level say it looks like our revenues for taxes, we're going to come in almost at least very, very close to what we're budgeted. So, credit to Ben back in the day for estimating those, I think. And then in terms of expenses, we're looking to be probably at about 80 to 85% overall of estimated expenses for the year. We will end up, I think, spending about less than half of the fund balance amount that you all budgeted to be used in a one-time manner. So that's a good thing too, for sure. It's good to have that fund balance there. You have it for emergencies, you have it for unexpected expenses, and you also tend to balance your budget with one-time funds. And, the less you can do that, the better. So coming in a little bit under half of what we thought we might need is, I think that's a good target to have hit. But again, as we get into the end of August and we start getting in to be able to finish off all the accruals, I'll be able to come back and say, yes, this is what our end of the year numbers look like more specifically, more exactly.
I think, didn't Ben didn't we kind of project that revenues, sales tax revenues would be fairly flat?
I think it was like a 3% increase from the year before, so not much. And for this year, the current fiscal year you're in, you all approved a budget that included no increase in sales and revenue taxes, so.
Smart of you guys. Any questions for David? We'll be hearing more about the budget, probably first meeting in September. Right, or last meeting?
First or second, yeah.
Yeah, okay, so we'll get that final budget so we can see where we ended up, which will help us for next year.
Good work, David. One of your many hats.
I know.
I just have,
Yeah, go ahead.
just for the public, because there's been a lot of conversations in the community about audits. I just want to make it super clear what it means about the unrestricted fund balance, make sure I understand it, to make sure the public understands it. So what I'm understanding is that money was allocated and it was just, we didn't move the money in time, but it wasn't like we had 1.3 extra million sitting around. It was that it was in an account and it wasn't moved at the right time.
Correct.
Right.
From an accounting standpoint, that's right.
Okay, great, thanks.
And to your point too, annual audits are required by the state. It's something that happens every year. The city always has one. And it's a process that just ensures that we stay on top of our financial procedures, particularly around how we handle money, right? It's certainly important to be on top of how our accounts are lined up, but at the end of the day, what's probably most important is how controls are in place to make sure that we minimize the potential for fraud or theft and that kind of thing. And that the city is generally always in their audits, that's not been something that's been an issue.
And just as a reminder too, we have an audit committee for an additional oversight of the audit, which includes staff and a council member and a financial expert. So we've got a lot of oversight in that regard. Any other questions for David? All right, thanks, David.
Thank you.
More to come on the budget. And then the last item is our consent agenda. We have 3 items, 5.1, 5.2, 5.3. 5.1 is consideration of approval of a letter of commitment for the Utah State University Extension Healthy Utah program. This is a commitment for us to move forward with becoming designated as a healthy community in Utah. There's several steps. This is the first step. And then a coalition is formed. Colin is on that coalition along with Alexi. And then from there, we develop health ideas and then come up with a plan. And the coalition will primarily be doing that work. But in order to even get our foot in the door, we need this letter. So that's in your packet as part of the consent agenda. And then we have approval of the minutes from our July 9th regular meeting and approval of the bills against the city of Moab in the amount of $2,785,213.33. Wow. That's a lot of money.
Comes with the territory.
Yes. Okay, do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll move to approve the consent agenda.
Motion by Luke, do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Tawny. Discussion, Luke?
No.
Tawny, anybody else?
Nice letter.
Oh, thank you, thank you. All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Consent agenda passes 5-0. All right. City manager update.
Yeah. Check. Okay. A few things, the pool being item number 1 at the MRAC. We had a little bit of a hiccup last week when a pump blew out. We did, as you all know, jump on that, and staff over there then went a little bit the extra mile and ended up driving over to Junction to pick up parts themselves instead of waiting for it to get here. We got that thing going, so we're open. We got that back open a little sooner than we thought we were going to, so that was great. And our new aquatics manager has begun his tenure here, Josh Darricott, and we'll be bringing him in to, so you can all give him a look at some point soon here at the council meeting. I'm excited to have him in there. He's doing a lot of listening and learning from what I understand, and it's great to have a little more capacity there. Brianna's been really burning the candle there. Walnut Lane, as you all are also probably pretty aware, we have completed that initiative to relocate residents there and are engaging in the process to remove the trailers here. Some have been removed, but we did get delayed because of the flooding and the need for our staff to address that first, cleaning the streets and parkways and whatnot. So they will be next week beginning the process of trailer demolition and removal. And let's see, Marcy always wanted me to remind everybody, we're still in the month of open enrollment for garbage and recycling services. So if you want changes to your can size or frequency of pickup, talk to the city, and we'll be still dealing with that and for the next little while we work through the transition with the solid waste district to hand over billing and all of that responsibility. After which we being the city staff will not be involved at all. And then the last thing I did want to mention is received some feedback regarding impacts to traffic because of the Cane Creek Boulevard reconstruction project. And we've done a little bit of work over there to get better signage in place and make sure people are aware that Just because you are not on Cane Creek where it says you can only go 15 miles an hour, that does not mean you can go 30 miles an hour on Mountain View Drive or Dock Island. So we're very aware of the impacts to the neighborhood over there, and we'll continue to address it as we need to moving forward. That's it.
Thank you, David. All right, council reports. We'll start with you, Tawny.
But this will be short. I haven't had any meetings the last couple of weeks, but everybody go to the ice cream social at the museum tomorrow evening from 6 till 8. It's always well received.
It'll be hot. Ice cream will be good.
Ice cream will be good. And the Housing Authority is having a really short meeting on Thursday. It's just to vote, and I am not a voting member, so I probably won't go. And I will just let you know, I won't be to the next district meeting, but I'll let Debbie Tester know too. Lou won't be there either, so.
Thanks. Luke.
So I attended the LHC meeting. Just some updates from some of the other participating organizations is FBMC has implemented a new intake system for their food pantry. USARA has hired a new part-time individual to help assist them with their services in the community, and they have recently partnered with the hospital to provide 24-hour overdose like services, kind of peer support services. And I know they just had an event this past weekend, but they're also scheduling a tattoo expo on August 23rd and 24th, where a portion, I think 50% of the proceeds are going to go towards overdose and recovery awareness. And they'll also provide Narcan trainings on site there as well. And so I think they're going to have a bunch of like flash tattoos that are kind of recovery themed available to anybody who's interested. And then the Moab Free Health Clinic has recently partnered with the USU optometry program in hopes of providing more vision services to the reduced cost or free vision services in the community. And I know they're trying to work with some other optometrists to see if they can provide even broader services. At the MOP meeting, we got a presentation about recent flood events. And kind of just the pattern of flood events. And it seems that this 5,000 CFS, so this past flood just was like just a hair under 5,000 CFS. And looking at kind of the historical record, it looks like these 5,000 CFS events have a recurrence pattern of 25 years. So they hit our 100-year plane about every 25 years. It's more so we've had 4 events like that in the past 70 something years.
In the last 2.
Yeah,
the last 2 years.
Yeah. And then Rim to Rim received a $5 million community wildfire defense grant that is a 5-year-long grant that is going to start in the fall of 2024. So that $5.2 million is going to be shared between approximately 7+ organizations. They already have somewhat of a plan as to like how they're going to attack things, but with this being a 5-year plan, they're thinking about maybe taking the first year to better flesh out their plans for the other 4 years. And then the GWISA, they are low on some parts due to a brass shortage. I guess there's some sort of like new rule implemented regarding copper and lead, which has resulted in like a very significant brass shortage. GWISA and the districts received their audit reports as well. Everything looked good financially. The only like little deficiency was that we had was regarding like conflict of interest forms. I guess we can't just sign a GWISA one and have it apply to all the districts. We have to sign one each individually for whatever body we're on. Then yeah, no algae has been seen in Ken's Lake so far, but we were warned to keep an eye out in August as it is likely to return. And then earlier this week, GWISA had a pump breakdown and needed to ask customers to conserve water if possible as it kind of reduced their capacity. However, they just sent out a notification earlier today saying that repairs have been completed and they are back to normal capacity. And that is all of it.
Thanks, Luke. Colin.
On the 15th of July, I attended a meeting between the city and GCAT, Grand County Active Trails and Transportation, to discuss the interlocal agreement that has now expired, and it was a very productive meeting, and seems that that interlocal agreement will be fleshed out and we'll be moving forward. Jason and I that evening had our property tax conversation at Swanee Park, which was not super well attended. I think we had a total of 9 people there, including ourselves, and had a really productive conversation, and you know, people from definitely both sides of that issue, and but it was just a very, I think, productive and respectful conversation. So very appreciative of that. And then on the 17th, I attended a solid waste meeting where we voted to approve the service discount for special populations, and then also found out that the solid waste district will continue offering the 65-gallon option. Thank you, David. And I think that's a great example of what benefits we can get from this partnership with two government agencies. Yep. So, and yeah, thank you for your involvement in that, David. And that is it for me.
Thank you. Caitlin. I also attended the LHC meeting. I couldn't attend the Community Renewable Energy Agency meeting, but it seems like they're moving forward with low-income housing plan, or not housing, front of mind. I attended, but speaking of housing, I did meet with someone from Give Development. I wasn't able to go to their open house for the Amasa Apartments, but got a good overview and a good discussion. I've watched these guys build some pretty incredible projects up in the Salt Lake area for a long time. So I'm really excited and encouraged to see them building some projects down here and joining conversations about housing in Moab. I attended the free concert series on Friday, which is always just a really great time, and have mostly just been talking to a lot of people, doing a lot of research related to property tax. Thank you. Go ahead.
What was the name of the developer for King?
Give,
Yeah.
GIV.
Yeah, I went to that event and they seem to be just like a fantastic organization. They're saying that with the way things are shaping up right now, their new developments in that area are likely going to be cheaper per month than the existing ones.
Wow.
Yeah, they're talking about some of, because I guess a lot of these like light tech products or projects have an affordability like time limit. So I think some of these projects are like 10 years away from hitting that limit, and so they're talking about potentially making some of those townhomes rent to own, but still at the subsidized price. So potentially some people in our community might be able to move into home ownership for a very reduced costs. And yeah, just really great organization that made up of like 3 separate entities. So they have kind of like a for-profit, a nonprofit, and then kind of like a finance holding company that allow one another to work. They, as an organization, I think a couple of years ago made a commitment to really focus on kind of more family housing. So rather than just kind of providing 1 or 2 bedrooms, I think, I forget what the percentage is, but it's going to be like over 30 or 40% are going to be like 3 and 4 bedroom units from what they're building.
And they've already got their tax credits, from my understanding too. So they're ready to go, which is great. We'll probably be hearing more from them soon.
Great.
Jason.
All right. I attended a Grand County EMS meeting. I wasn't able to attend the whole thing, but we did enter an agreement to obtain a loan from the Healthcare Special Service District to kind of get through some leaner months that EMS has been kind of hit with lately, as far as call volume being down and some other things that they've been hit with, changing billing agencies, and things are starting to look slightly better for them. But they did have to work with the Healthcare Special Service District, which does draw funding from the same fund of the Healthcare Special Service tax and stuff. It was able to borrow from that, and then we work on repaying that over the next 4 years or 2 years.
No.
like that. Is it
Next year.
the next year? Is
Over
it
4
quarterly?
months. Over
Yeah,
4 months.
okay, it's
So-
quarterly over the next year. Okay, that's what it was. And then, I also, attended the pavilion thing with Colin, and it was great. I actually, really appreciated it. There was a lot of really good conversations going on, talking about the upcoming, probability or discussion on the property tax, and it was very good. I'm glad to be able to attend that. And then, also attended the free concert series on Friday. It was amazing. All the people that were there and all the locals that are there is just really good to see. And from people from all walks of life were literally there. And it was fun. It was really good. And that is all I have for my reports.
Thank you. I have been working primarily with David and Danny on the city manager interviews. We have over 40 applicants. We've narrowed it down to 6, and we have scheduled those interviews for next week. So from that, we'll see what we get, and I'll let you guys know where we go from there. And then I also had a meeting with the Utah League of City and Towns with the resort communities. It was specific to those of us that are in towns with resort communities, and that was Springdale, Elta, Torrey, and others. There was about, maybe about a dozen people on the call. Cam from the league was there also to kind of give us an update on what we can anticipate from the legislature this session. The big issue is going to be housing again. The interesting thing is that there's some key legislatures that are concerned about short-term rentals and how we can disincentivize them. I find that very interesting because we were kind of the eye of the legislature because we implemented our policy for short-term rentals, and now the state's seeing how smart we were. And anyway, so another issue that's probably going to be coming up is the Housing Act, the Houses Act by Senator Lee, which allows affordable housing to be entities like ours in the county. This will primarily be the county that can purchase public land to do affordable housing. So I think the state's really looking at that bill and how they can, work with the senator on getting that passed. And the other issue that came up was taxes. So the legislature is really going to be looking at taxes, all taxes, primarily the TRT tax. They're going to be looking at the formula and how tourism impacts versus promotional impacts. And they also are going to be looking at a statewide TRT tax for the new entertainment district in Salt Lake City. So that's something that we need to be paying attention to. I basically brought up that we do not want the city of Moab to be impacted by whatever they come up with. So we'll need to be following that pretty closely this year. And that's all I have. And with that, we have no executive session. I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
Motion by Luke. Second by Tawny. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0. Thanks, everyone. Oh. August 6th, Truth and Taxation meeting, 6 o'clock right here. Hey, Summer.